Oh, wow. All right, all right. Just want to say hi to everybody. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Pura vida, mi gente. Much love and respect. Thanks for coming through, making time to be here. Learn together. We're gonna watch a little presentation. All right, we're gonna do it together. Pura vida, pura vida. How you guys doing? Wow, wow. All right. Check this out. Let me pura vida. Let me put on my reading and screen glasses. Hold on. Where is it? Where's it at? Check it out. There we go. There we go. All right. All right. Oh, wow. Pura vida, everybody in the live chat. Chat. Pura vida. Thanks for coming through the live chat. All right, let me get the, hold on. I'm gonna pause this, because I know you guys can't hear the music yet. Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Can you hear me okay? All right. I think they can hear you. I think they can hear you good, Alex. Wow, pura vida, pura vida. Sorry, guys. Yeah, get the video. There we go. Wow, there you go. Okay, so we're gonna check out this presentation by Alex Koritz. All right, the name's on the description of my video, so you guys can get the real name. All right, hold on, let's put on a little melody. Wow, let me know if it's too loud, the music. All right. So we're gonna check out this presentation. Hater blockers. What's going on? And so he's gonna tell you about some pretty interesting artifacts that they have found throughout North America. A lot of emphasis in Michigan and Ohio and a lot of these areas in the Midwest, but also some other areas. A lot of these artifacts we have gone over before. All right. So you guys will recognize a lot of them, but he's also going to mention somebody he's kind of referencing a lot in the presentation, and we might get to that person's book, okay, just for the dismount. So again, thank you for tuning in. We're going to start it now. All right.
Can you hear me okay?
Definitely.
Ryan, am I coming through back there? All right.
Yeah.
Anybody Nephite Explorer fans here? All right. Ryan was my secret weapon I took on sort of my Michigan artifact crusade. In the last few episodes, I guess about a month ago, have been Michigan artifact oriented. Its family thing is actually slang for it's a family thing, I promise. We'll just call that an inside joke versus a typo. Moving along, if you didn't notice. Okay, so today, so there certainly are more people that know more about the Michigan artifacts than myself. Sean Davies, Wayne May, but I hope I can bring you a little bit of the unique family connection we have and a little bit of the inside story and some status on where the collection is and what's going on with it. So we will cover, today we're starting about 3, so we'll cover my story, I guess my interest in the Michigan artifacts, ancient commerce, which is relevant, and then the Michigan artifacts and their history. And then we're going to talk about building a collection, which I've been doing for about 3 or 4 years of artifacts themselves. So this is a non-denominational lecture. However, it is impossible to talk about the Michigan artifacts without talking about the LDS Church. So if you're not LDS, just hang in there. It's not preachy, it's just part of the story. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin. Anybody familiar with Elder Milton R. Hunter? Okay, and certainly some of the older generation is more familiar with him. But he is my grandfather. He was in the first corps. He was in the presidency. He served from 1945 to 1975. So he died 2 years before I was born, but I've always felt really close to him and really had an affinity with him. Brilliant man, PhD from Berkeley in history. However, after turning down a lot of prestigious jobs in history, he went and taught at Utah State University at the Institute of Religion there. He was a co-founder of the New World Archaeological Foundation and was the author of many books. Now, he really focused on archaeology and the Book of Mormon and what he believed were parallels found in ancient America, Mesoamerica, and a little bit in North America as well, to the Book of Mormon people. So that's what he wrote there. He wrote with an old journalist hat. That he always wrote with that. And then as he got older, which we'll see, he got a little more interested in the history of North America as well. So as a young, we'll go back here, literally as a 10-year-old boy, I was reading his books and just ate it up. So my love for history was in the blood, established early. And it's because my grandpa and then my parents are extremely history literate and encouraging. So it's definitely a family thing. So.
All right. So a little bit of his background. Hope you guys understood. So he's the grandson of Milton Hunter. All right. So yeah, he was a Mormon, but we're not here talking about Mormon religion. That's not the point of this. You know, when we talk about like old world artifacts, Hebrew or Israelites in ancient America, we're not just going off the Book of Mormon. The Book of Mormon, a lot of their whole, religion is based on that fact that the ancient Americas is the true promised land, is biblical lands. There was Israelites here and Hebrew people. That's their whole story, apart from the whole added Christianity part and anything they always do with religion. But, there's a real history behind it, just like in the Bible, right? So we're past that, just so you guys could understand that. So as he was saying, and I got that book, I want to show you guys. All right, we're going to probably read a little bit today for the dismount. So this is Archaeology and the Book of Mormon by Milton R. Hunter, PhD, right? So that's his grandfather, he's saying, right? All right, so we're going to pull out the babies, right? And we're going to dodge the hijack, right? We're ready, like always, right? So that's who he is. So he had access to this knowledge, to this information, to these ideas, to this thought, right? That his, through his Mormon relationship of his grandfather, right? He has a little access and more an open mind to certain things. And so he's going to talk about certain artifacts, right, that they have found here. All right, we're going to go ahead and play the presentation. Thanks for coming through. Shout out to everybody in the live chat. What's up?
Reading these books, I grew up really wanting to do a church mission. We'll call it a church mission in Central America. That's where I thought, the real interesting cultures were. And they are, but that's really where I wanted to go. I got my mission call to Ohio. And, I was like, I was a little bummed out, but, I didn't know anything about the cultures there. So immediately the first thing, was about, anybody been to Ohio here or the Midwest? So beautiful, right? You see flashes of brilliant red in the trees of the cardinals, and the falls are just gorgeous. And, I could leave the winters, but every other season is great. And the fireflies are just magical. So I didn't know anything about the mound builders. And my first area was in Miamisburg. And so the Adena culture is the early mound builder culture. The dates vary, but, we'll say roughly from, 2000 BC to, 400 AD, or about 400 BC, I'm sorry. And then of course, the Hopewell culture was the culture that came after them and ended about 480. But anyway, this is the largest Adena mound. That's a picture from on top, and then that's just a picture of it. And they built the conical mounds. And so I got to Ohio and I saw these mounds, and then the dates with them are like, wow, this is really cool. I didn't know there were these ancient cultures in North America, right? We're not really taught that. But me and my parents and I just got back from Cahokia. I don't know if any of you have been there, but the largest pyramid there is larger than the Pyramid of Giza, and it is not found in our history books.
Yep.
Their children today are just not talk about it.
Uh-huh.
They don't talk about it. So this is Chillicothe, another area I served in. Again, mounds all over the place. This is by Moundville State Park. And on our preparation day, we would play sports, literally a park right here. And we'd play football next to these mounds, and then I'd go over and I'd look at them like, wow, look at these dates. I mean, this stuff is old. Newark, I ended up there. I mean, I was chosen to serve in the special spot. So Newark was super interesting. I've always been skeptical a little bit of solar alignments. I think if you could go out to the parking lot and to your car and find some solar alignments. So I've always been a little skeptical of it. But there were two researchers, and one was from the UK that was an expert on Stonehenge. And then they went and studied the Newark site looking for solar alignments, and they were also, kind of skeptical, and they were really surprised that they found none. They didn't find any solar alignments, and what they found were at least 8 lunar alignments, and that is really interesting because the Middle Eastern cultures align their structures, Temple of Solomon and so forth, to the moon, lunar alignments. And so that is a clear sort of separation from Mesoamerican cultures to the mound builders. Is the Mesoamerican cultures are much more solar oriented. In North America, we get much more alignments to the moon. Newark Holy Stones, some of you may be familiar with these. So right outside of Newark is a little town called Geshocton. There's a museum there, the Johnson Farmhouse. You go there, and we went in there, and this was one of their main exhibits, and I was just blown away, right? So on there, the middle one there is the Decalogue stone, and that's an older version of Hebrew that has the 10 Commandments. And the top symbol there is a symbol for Moshe or Moses. And there's other interpretations of that as well, but most scholars say it's Moses. And this is a keystone to the left, I guess to your right, which says "Holiness to the Lord" in block Hebrew. So fascinating stuff. Immediately controversial, right? Because what are ancient Hebrews doing in North America? But very interesting. So I came home with a real sort of, wow, there's some cool stuff right in our own country. You don't have to go to Egypt. You don't have to go to Central America. So this is how it's relevant. Did ancient cultures around the world know about the ancient Americas? And if yes, why? What was the real reason? Who were they? When? And where? So the main reason we find ancient cultures coming to the ancient Americas is trade.
All right. So, all right, guys. So we got a little what you call skeptic. Let's call him a skeptic. Let's not call him a troll yet. People get emotional. You guys gotta understand when your whole belief system what you thought was true gets destroyed, people tend to become emotional, right? So I'm sorry if we're interrupting the presentation. I just want to say that, guys, like, if you're new to my channel, if you're hearing this for the first time, we don't just do presentations where we got people talking and then just me here doing reactions. This ain't that type of channel. All right. So we have 8 years of research that speaks for itself. You come out of nowhere to try to push your whatever logic you call a logic on the live chat, and you're not even paying attention to what he's saying. And then you've missed out on 8 years of it, So that, your question as well as, what do you mean it can't be how is the old world and the promised land the same? Like, don't you know what's supposed to be the promised land, supposed to be in the old world? Like, your questioning is just like, shows your ignorance. So anyways, what he's saying is they're finding all these same ways of, keeping count of the stars, astrology, the alignments of the pyramids, all the ancient knowledge that they find in the old world over here. He's showing examples of it. And now they're saying, oh, these people came, all these people from the old world came, right? It had to have been that. It couldn't have been the local people, right? It couldn't have been the local people that actually, this is the true old world. But people talk about logic, but they have no logic. Everybody came from somewhere else. This whole big continent was just empty, with savages running around. And all those other people evolved from apes, right? All those other people evolved from apes, and then they came over here. But you can't tell us why there was people here or who they're from. You just want to conjecture. You want to guess. You want to give your opinion. Okay, so again, history I know is personal to everybody because you make it personal, you make it part of your beliefs. It becomes like a religious mind state where you don't want to hear anything else. That's your cognitive dissonance. It starts kicking in. Cognitive dissonance starts kicking in. So again, we're taking our opportunity right now since we're live to address certain things, right? Because that's what helps also in the learning. We got to get rid of our own, we got to empty our cup sometimes. What we have been taught in history is false. People tend to be conspiracy theories and say, oh, the government lies and all this history is history. But then when we're showing you the proof of it, when we're showing you that they have lied. Look what we found here in ancient America. Now you don't want to go with that, right? Because it's not part of your belief, because you're still on Asia, out of Asia theories or out of Africa theories, right? So again, if you're new to the channel, sit back, relax, get some popcorn, catch up, enjoy today's presentation. And once you see what we have done in the last 8 years, you'll see that all that stuff that he's talking about today, we have proven already, and we have shown hundreds of other examples. Thousands, probably. So this is just more icing on the cake for us. We just wanted people to see it's not just us talking about this stuff. Yeah, it's an unlearning. It's a slow process and takes personal research. Exactly. Talking is cheap. People just want to air out their opinions. They don't read proverbs. They don't know scripture. Fools like airing out their opinions. The wise listen. Wise people listen. Wise people listen and learn, observe, and then go verify. It's not only what you got to say. It's not always about what you believe and you trying to push that on everybody else. We ain't in that era anymore. Show your sources. What you talking about? So we definitely, with no disrespect to Alex either, of course, based on what he believed is history, where he was told that the old world's on that side, he's saying people came here from the so-called old world and brought all this knowledge and these tablets and this languages they're finding in Hebrew, Paleo Hebrew and all that, right? We've already debunked all that. We know this is the true old world. If you don't understand what that means, you having a problem with it, it's because you lack a lot of research. You haven't been here in the journey we've been taking. You haven't been here, not just with me, but you haven't even done this research yet, obviously. So we're talking about Phoenicians coming over. Phoenicians? What you mean Phoenicians? That's not a nation, guys. That was literally like a group of seafaring peoples, seafarers, and included many different peoples, like Danites, Israelites, other people, the Tyrians. Many other people were so-called Phoenicians. Phoenician or writing is literally Paleo Hebrew. Pictograph. Pictographs, like what we see in the walls in the Americas. Pictograph. He's going to talk about some of that stuff today. Pay attention. Now, anybody else got a problem with us saying or showing or proving that they told you history in reverse, this is the true old world? Listen up, man. Use your logic that you're talking about. If they're finding all this stuff here, everywhere, why you keep saying they came from somewhere else? You can't even prove that part. You're conjecturing that part based on a lie. Based on a lie, right? Okay. Are we going to continue? Sorry about that, guys. Facts over feelings. So he's saying Phoenicians came and, that's the hijack. Seeing it in reverse. You know how we always do it.
Commerce is the main reason why. And we could talk about, anybody read Frank Joseph? Anybody familiar with him? He has a great book about ancient colonies in the Americas of different cultures. I really highly recommend that one.
So he's saying commerce was the main reason people from the other side of the world came here. Commerce. Now, how did they know, first of all, to come here, first of all? They just stumbled on, right? They just got lost in the storm or whatever, right? That's what they want you to think, guys. Like, they can't even explain stuff like that, right? But yeah, commerce, very important. Why commerce? Why? What's the most resourceful lands in the world, guys? This is not being biased. This is anything this is facts you can research. When we're talking about food crops, we're talking about natural resources, silver, gold, anything. Like, we're talking about animals that came out of here. We're talking about the oldest lands, we're talking about oldest agriculture. That's the start of civilizations, agriculture. We're not talking about a desert and somewhere they say, oh, it started over there in a desert. They have no proof of it, no fossilized squash, no fossilized corn like they find here, 5,000, 6,000 BC, 8,000 BC, fossilized squash in Michigan, Louisiana, Poverty Point, all these places, they're finding evidence of crops, large fields, the prairies of North America. We have a whole video on that showing that was most likely fields of crops before. That's why it's all flat and just prairies now. That used to be fields where they used to grow. Indigenous people of the Americas used to grow food massively. Okay, so when we're talking about commerce, why commerce? Why are they coming here for commerce? They're gonna risk commerce to go see if they have like commerce. He's not explaining that part. You've seen it in reverse. Phoenicians, so-called seafarers, if anybody was to cross the Atlantic first, and this is by the most famous historian on the sea currents and historical navigation of the world, he said it would be from America first. The currents are a lot stronger, the winds are more favorable, it's 4 times harder coming the other way around. You can literally get caught in a current in Jamaica and end up in Ireland, and then back down to Cape Verde and back around. It's stronger though. The Gulf Stream is the strongest Gulf Stream, the ocean current. A lot of stuff people are missing context on, okay? So we already got hundreds of videos on showing this stuff, right? Showing who's really going where and from where. Since ancient times. So he's talking about Frank Joseph, right? He's like, hey, you guys should read. We've read many of Frank Joseph's books. We dodged the hijack a lot with Frank and all these people because they like white supremacists, unfortunately. They literally white supremacists. That's all they white this, white there, white Atlantean, white high civilized, ancient America, like Atlanteans, all this white. But we dodged the hijack and we pull out the babies. We get a lot of babies from these books, right? So, yeah, we know Frank Joseph, Alex. Yeah, we know that. Yeah, we've read his books, Frank. Us in this channel, this community, not somebody who just arrived here. All right. So what about him? What was he saying? Frank Joseph also says people came from somewhere else. Yeah.
So I'll just highlight a few here because, again, it's relevant to Michigan. Frank Joseph. And he writes a lot about North America and in ancient contact with North America. But just wanted to highlight a few of these cultures. But first, let's talk about copper, because everything really evolves around this. This is why ancient civilizations knew about Michigan. So
copper, right? Everything depends on the copper-colored tribes of America. Pay attention. Ancient copper from America was the key to the Bronze Age. Is what allowed the Bronze Age to happen in Europe. Copper from Michigan. We already have proven this.
So copper is interesting. So native copper or float copper is pure copper. Now most other mines throughout the world have it's an ore essentially. And so it's a mixture, it's not pure copper. So pure copper is much more desirable, it's easy to work with, it's much more valuable.
The purest copper in the world, guys, from America. So this is what I was saying earlier. You want commerce? Commerce. Oh, you knew we had copper here. You just happen to know we had copper. You came to do commerce with who? Who you doing commerce with? Who you doing commerce with? Who's mining that? But you can't tell us that part, right? 500,000 tons of copper is missing. Where'd it go?
So Michigan copper is 97% copper, and then it has a really unique mix with silver. And so essentially, and then they have a nickname, geologists have a nickname for this, they call them half-breeds, when it has this certain amount of pure copper and then a certain amount of pure silver. And only in Michigan is this found, nowhere else in the world. And so Michigan copper almost has a DNA signature. You can track it anywhere. And then that's really, really, really important.
It's really, really, really important, Kevin. If you don't understand this, you're missing a lot of context. Where they get their metal to do their Bronze Age, huh?
So highly sought after. And what we see, the Michigan mines date from about 5300 BC and abruptly ends about 1200 BC.
5300 BC. Let me put that in context. A lot of people don't understand the number. We're talking about add 2025 to that, right? That's the year we're on, right? So that would be what, like almost 8,000 years ago. 7,000 to 8,000 years ago, somebody in ancient Michigan, guys, is mining copper. There's 500 tons of there's 500,000 tons of copper missing. I can't account it for. Okay? And you want to come over here talking about what's the logic in this? What's your logic, man? When you find that 500,000 tons of copper, then we can talk some serious stuff. Kevin. Until then, I want to hear about your logic. Where's all this copper, guys? Purest copper in the world. Happens to be near the oldest land of the world, the Laurentian mountain chain, right? According to Louis Agassiz, the most famous geologist, America is the true old world. He's letting you know it's not me. Listen to the geologist.
So it peaks around 2300 BC. So if you know your history, it's really peaking around the Bronze Age. And what are our key elements for bronze? It's copper and tin. And 1.5 billion pounds of this copper was removed from these ancient copper mines. And scholars, archaeologists, even mainstream archaeologists, this isn't even fringe archaeologists, are just baffled by where did this copper go?
They're baffled. Where did it go? Where did the copper go? They haven't found it. That's what I said. When Kevin finds it and he lets us know, then that's it. I'll be quiet. That's it.
It is just vanished. Now you do have some of this copper found in, Hopewell burials, some in Maine, some as far as California. But this copper that has been found in archaeological sites makes up about 1% of what was taken out of there. So where did it go, right? That's the big question. So we know, now let's jump in. We're going to talk about a few cultures, and we'll try to go just a little bit chronologically here. Let me talk about this first. So a historian in the UK, and the reason I highlighted the UK is because the ancient tin capital of the ancient trade world was Cornwall in England. And so Dr. Paladin Jenkins, a historian from Glastonbury, UK, writes, I met a farmer who owns the land on which a megalithic stone circle is, called Mary Maidens, in the far west Cornwall. While clearing hedges, he discovered an arrowhead which was sent to the British Museum for identification. The answer returned 5,000 years old. The source, Michigan.
Mm.
And again, England would be a key, if not destination stop, if you're making bronze.
All right, guys. Do you hear what he's telling you, right? This is official. They literally traced it back to Michigan. They found this in Cornwall. Old World Cornwall, England. What did I tell you? Like, we went out from here. We brought a lot of civilization, a lot of advanced science, a lot of all this stuff, precious stones and metals, food, corn, turkeys. They told us history in reverse. Yes, Americans were the first to use copper, the most purest in the world, guys. Yes. Listen to what he's telling you, dude. Where they finding this Michigan copper all the way in Cornwall, UK? This is the stuff they don't teach you in school. And they want to say, oh, that's just Mormon stuff. That's just Mormon. That's not Mormon stuff. It has nothing to do with Mormon stuff. That's you sugarcoating what I'm showing you. That's you just trying not to, you want to ignore that. So you want to throw it off. Like, oh, that's just Mormon stuff. What they're finding in Cornwall in this ancient mine there, and then, or whatever they're finding in Cornwall right here, tracing it back to Michigan, that has nothing to do with Mormons.
Because of the ancient Cornwalls, the Cornwall in the tin trade there. So there's a plaque also in London's museum that says from about 2500 BC, and that's when we saw the peak of these mines, the peak activity. The use of copper, formerly limited to parts of southeastern Europe, suddenly swept through the rest of the continent. Now, there are some ancient copper mining activity in Cyprus, but it's a different kind of copper. It's more of an alloy, an oxide. It's not this float copper, or this pure copper.
So the one in Europe, that's more alloy. It's not pure like the one in America, guys. So what would you rather, right? If you had money, you're a king in Europe or Asia, Africa, wherever you are, you know there's a spot where they got pure copper. Are you gonna buy the alloy one, the less quality one, or are you gonna go, hey, go get me the pure copper, right? So the commerce, yeah, commerce. Who you making commerce with? 5,000, no, what is it? 7,000 years ago. Come on now. Just that alone. How about logic? That's not even supposed to be going on 7,000 years ago, guys. Especially in ancient America. We talk about ancient Egypt, Sumeria. That shit, that came later after those dates.
So it swept through Europe and the rest of the country. And then what's interesting is we can start to track it. So let's first talk about the Minoans. These guys were the culture for the Bronze Age. These guys controlled trade, commerce. If you've read about them, they were based in Crete and in Thera, which is Santorini today. And the culture is fascinating. These guys had clay plumbing. They had running water. I mean, just amazing high civilization that they achieved. And they controlled the trade, and particularly the Bronze Age, the trade there. And so this is called the Newberry Tablet, found in 1896 in a little town in Michigan called Newberry. So, and here there was a bunch of characters on here. Now, in 1896, scholars knew nothing about the Minoans until 1905.
Okay, it's a lot of drop going on right now, guys. Gotta make sure you guys are understand that. I'm gonna break it down, okay? So Minoans, right? And trust me, we have videos on their whole mysterious origin, and it's all leading back to so-called Atlantis, right? The Minoans, right? Who's these Minoans in charge of the trade of this pure copper coming from ancient America? Minoans, huh? So these people have progenitors, which is what we do in other series, right? We try to trace all that stuff and see what's more logical, talking about logic, right? So what is he saying? He's saying that in Ohio in 1896, guys, pay attention. In 1896 in Ohio, they found a tablet, the Newberry tablet. That's what it's called, with what they're calling ancient Minoan-like script. What they're calling. But this is a more archaic form. It's always a more archaic or more older form of what they find in Europe. And if you look at it, a lot of it looks like Paleo-Hebrew, kind of. But either way, they finding that in Ohio. Listen, in 1896, in a time where he just said, where they hadn't even studied the Minoans until 1905. They didn't know anything. I'm talking about in the world. They were just finding out about so-called Minoans in 1905. You hear that? So how much can they really know about these people when they just found out about them in 1905? And they're finding, what are they finding here? A tablet that has so-called Minoan ancient script in Ohio. So where is your logic if they're finding that here in Ohio and they didn't know anything about Minoans until 1905? What's your logic to say, oh, Minoans came here and then, well, you know, they came to America and they did a little tablet and stuff and they just left. They just left. They didn't settle. They didn't. Ancient Egyptians just came and then they just left. You know, Vikings came and then they just left. You know, we're talking about logic. We're talking about people don't have it. We've been dumbed down. We've been dumbed down with this false history. Talking about logic. We've been really dumbed down. So I'm not saying anybody like Alex or anybody doing the presentations but it's just like we're blinded. We get this veil like, okay, don't you see you found this in 1896? You just said they didn't know anything about Minoans. They haven't found anything like that over there. Why would you assume they came from somewhere else and not original to here? Whoever you calling the Minoans, they might have had a different name here in ancient America. They might have called themselves something else. So we're going to continue, but pay attention. This is deep. 1896 tablet in Ohio, Minoan script. They didn't know anything about Minoans until 1905, but yet they're finding this here in America, right? They forgot to tell us about that in school.
By British archaeologists on Crete. And then we learned more about the culture and discovered a lot of their language. A lot of the Minoan language is still a mystery. However, we do know the characters, and this is from that culture. So
he just said the language is a mystery. We don't know very much about the Minoans. We don't know the language is still a mystery, but we do know that's their script. How do you know that's their script? Okay, and you're finding it here in Ohio, then why would you say they came here? You're finding that here in Ohio, right? And you're finding other old world stuff here. He's going to show you other stuff. And yet you still want to say everybody came from somewhere else, but you're finding all this stuff here and not over there. Talk about logic, right? So he knows the script. He's like, that's definitely Minoan we found in Ohio. We don't know anything about Minoans, but that's definitely Minoan. We don't know nothing about their language, nothing. It's still a mystery, but that's definitely Minoan. Okay.
We have Minoan alphabet here, found in 1896 with, these people could have no idea how to reproduce this. So Dr. Barry Fell, eminent archaeologist, is confirmed that this is Minoan. And I think the translation is still difficult. I'll have to reference his book, but I'm not quite sure what it says. We see other Minoan influence on the Ohio River, the Cavern of Glyphs, it's called. There is some petroglyphs that show Minoan dress, very similar to what's found on Crete. And again, if we line up, the Mississippi River and the Ohio River, you can get about everywhere east of the Mississippi River. So it would be a key trade route. Minoan artifacts have been found, a pot in Louisiana. So this is interesting. So
Minoan, other so-called Minoan artifacts found in Louisiana, somewhere else. Oh, they all came. They were just everywhere, but then they just left, right? They didn't encounter no Indians. No Indians say, hey, we encountered these weird people. They called themselves Minoans, blah, blah, blah. No.
In excavations throughout the world, Michigan ingots. Now, when we say ingots, we're just talking about little pieces of actual float copper, pure copper. They have been found in Crete. And remember, how do we know that? Because only Michigan copper is that pure alloy, that pure mix.
Do you guys understand the basics? They're finding Michigan copper and ancient Crete, over there. They're digging it up, archaeological stuff, even ships full of copper they have found in the ocean. We've gone over this, guys, with the purest copper in the world, which they were able to trace back to Michigan. And we're talking about in ships that are supposed to be ancient Phoenician, so-called Phoenician, all this other stuff. And so in Crete, the island, Mediterranean, right, where they had this trade empire, they're finding Michigan copper, guys. Michigan copper. They didn't tell us anything like this in school. This will rewrite history. They don't want us to think about this stuff. Now they want us to conjecture like them. So they want to influence the origin of it. Like they want us to say, oh, well, maybe Minoans went over to the Americas and then they just brought it back, and that's how they had the hookup. That's why they were the source. That's why they had the trade going. Yeah. Who's the Minoans? Yeah? How do they relate to so-called Atlantis, America, right? Known as the mystics as Atlantis, right? America known to the mystics as Atlantis, according to the Freemasons, right? It didn't all sync, guys. So pure, how do he letting you know? How do we know this? Because it's the only place in the world that has the purest copper. There's no other place. It's Michigan copper in ancient vessels and ancient sites in Europe. The Bronze Age was because of that Michigan copper. Let's go.
So it has a DNA signature. Just think of it as DNA. So archaeologist Zen Halpern says that other Michigan copper essentially has been found in archaeological sites in Britain, Sardinia, Cyprus, the Nile Delta, Turkey, Bulgaria, and other places. Now this graphic is from the National Geographic, this picture here, illustration. So there is a shipwreck off the coast of Turkey in Cape Gelidonia, and this has Michigan copper in it.
There you go.
And this ship was full of trade goods. It had Egyptian jewelry, Hittite goods, and Michigan copper. And again, the Minoans would have owned that trade.
Okay. Off the coast of Turkey, I'm sorry I keep interrupting, but we got to do this. Off the coast of Turkey, this is what I was saying. This is official, guys. This doesn't make the news. This doesn't make the 8 o'clock news tonight on WNBC GBTV. They didn't make it. They didn't make the cut. They found a vessel, sunken ancient ship, full of Michigan copper. Right? With what else? Egyptian and Hittite. What Egyptians? Where was ancient Egypt? I know you guys been watching UBTB. He's hard. He's going hard with the America's Egypt, right? Like, I'm glad he's still like proving it even more and more detail, like without a doubt, like adding scripture and everything. Like, we're over here trying to show the facts, right? So Hittite, who's the Hittites too? This is what I'm saying. We've gone over all this. Where's the true old world? Funny how those same artifacts that are in that same ship are people we have studied on related to Atlantis, America, right? Anyways, so a ship full of, you can look this up, guys. That's what I'm saying. The purest copper from Michigan. He's letting you know. How do you know that the scientists trace it like DNA? Like they have the way to do it with the chemical analysis and the tests in the laboratory. This is pure copper only found in Michigan. That's how, guys. You're not the scientists. Oh, they're lying, Kurimeo. Oh, now they're lying. But when they say out of Africa theories, then you agree with them, right? Oh, we come from monkeys. Oh, that you want to agree with them. Oh, okay.
Now, were the Minoans actually mining, or were they just picking up the copper? It's still debated.
Were the Minoans the ones mining it, or were they just the middlemen picking up the copper? We don't know. He just said we don't know. So if you don't know who was mining it, how you gonna tell us who it really was if you don't know? If we're telling you, what if it was ancient Americans? Duh. What if it was ancient Americans mining this? Duh. And running the trade around the world? No, it couldn't have been. We don't know. We don't know if it was Minoan. We don't know who. Um, we're not even gonna say if it was the local people. We don't want to say that. We don't know if it was the Minoans, right? This is what I'm trying to tell you guys. You might watch this presentation without me stopping it, and you might miss a lot of stuff. Like, like there's a lot of stuff here to pick up on what they're telling you. They don't know, but they know that's Minoan script. What is a Minoan? They don't even know who Minoans are. They don't even know who Minoans are. Have you guys seen the drawings of the Minoans on the wall? I've shown it to you. Copper-colored tribes. Yeah, copper-colored people. Swarthy people. All right.
But I personally think is this still on? This is still on. I personally think the Adena culture was actually doing the mining.
There you go.
But that is debated. But we know other cultures were picking up and trading this copper. And so in Ohio, this was only found about 20 years ago. A guy with a metal detector was going over, it was either a high school football field or just behind it. And it went off and he dug down. I'm sure he wasn't supposed to, but he found these pendants, very Minoan-like. This dress, it's a certain dance that they do. And this double axe symbol was a sacred symbol to the Minoans. And this is a pendant. When you see artifacts like that with a hole, it was usually worn around the neck as a pendant. So this found in Ohio. It was Cleveland area.
All right. Any questions? What they finding in Cleveland, Ohio? You live in Cleveland today? You've been through Cleveland? You've been in Ohio? Or you're from Ohio or Cleveland? Anybody from Cleveland right now in the live chat? They found this where you're walking, right? You're walking underneath you. There's so much history that's probably still there to be found. Evidence of the old world here in America. They found so-called Minoan pendants. He's calling this Minoan. This is how they classify things. They're telling you they don't know who the Minoans are. They don't know their language. They don't know, but they know every time they find something, they want to label Phoenician, Minoan, Celtic, Viking, Sumerian, all this other stuff. When they can't even prove that, because that's their only way of describing. That's how they have been indoctrinated to see things like Minoan. How that axe, like are you saying American Indians didn't have axes? Who thinks American Indians didn't have axes? That has to be Minoan. Yeah, so because whoever brought that over there, that symbol, and then became a thing in Europe, and now you crediting them, like now you're calling them Minoans. That's not the origin of axe. And axe is a weapon, right? Not just a symbol like that. So they finding this in Ohio, right? Cleveland, Ohio. Ancient so-called Minoan pendants, guys. What is it doing there if it's Minoan? And why are you finding it in Ohio? All right. Tomahawk. Yeah, double tomahawk. The X is the symbol of Osiris, huh? Let's keep going. All right.
Really close to Kirtland, actually. Okay. So we have the Minoans, and they really, we have them around 2500 BC. They go through some challenging things. So Thera, which is Santorini, erupts and absolutely destroys half of that civilization. And then it continues to thrive on Crete, even though they suffered major tsunamis and other earthquakes. But around 1200 BC, the Minoans just sort of vanish. They disintegrate. Their society is gone.
Uh-oh. All right, you guys heard that? What happened to the Minoans? They just vanished into thin air. Like that. They just vanished. Poof, into thin air. Magic. They just vanished. Oh, the volcano and all this and the earthquakes. And so you don't know anything about the Minoans, anything at all. You don't know where they originated. You don't know what happened to them. They went extinct. Like what? Like how they telling us American Indians went extinct, right? Oh, they just vanished. We don't know the numbers. They must have been absorbed. Oh. The Minoans vanished, guys. The aliens took them. Like the Maya vanished, right? The aliens. They all with the aliens with Elvis. Elvis, Abraham Lincoln, all of them, they're up there, right? with the Minoans, with the Mayas, with all these tribes from the southeast, they said disappeared. They just disappeared into thin air. They just disappeared. You're still here, Shauna. That's what I'm saying. Thank you, Shauna. You're still here, so-called Minoans. Yeah. What are you gonna talk about? The horse now? We already know what the horse originated, right? The indigenous people vanish into thin air. Always. You guys hearing, right? This is just like they saying a lot of the Indian tribes just vanish. Like, look at the patterns, guys. This is what they do. This is what I'm saying. They become experts at repeating their indoctrination. No dirt to throw on Alex. He's just going what he believes, like what he thinks is real. Like those kind of like logics to just say, oh, people just vanished. Just vanished, huh? The aliens took them. The little grays and the reptilians and all of them, the coneheads and all of them. They all having a big party up in Mars in a spinning ball. In a spinning ball. We're gonna go back. The Minoans vanished, okay? It's official. I thought it's not me saying it. But they left all this evidence that they brought the Michigan copper over, but they just vanished, so we can't trace them, so we don't know who they were. They don't want us to know who they were. They just vanished. Don't worry about them.
And so waiting in the wing are the Phoenicians. Now, the Phoenicians rise about 1200 BC, and again, very similar to the Minoans, they were tradesmen, but what they were really, really known for, they were expert sailors. And that was their thing. And some of their culture overlapped with the Minoans, where the Minoans would even use Phoenician sailors, and the Egyptians would use Phoenician sailors.
There you go. What I was saying earlier about Phoenicians, it just means seafarers, guys, advanced seafaring. Shout out to the archivist. He says, it seems like it was like a secret society, of seafaring people who had knowledge of certain charts and maps and navigation, and they only kept it to themselves, and because then you can go all over the world and you can monopolize. You can monopolize the trade. Why would you tell everybody? Listen to what we're saying. So Phoenicians, right? They came much later. He's saying even the Minoans became Phoenicians. That sometimes they grab some of their sailors. So it's not just what I was saying. Phoenicians just as a seafaring people coming out of the true old world.
The Phoenicians are Canaanites, so they're Semitic.
Phoenicians ain't just Canaanites. This is what I'm saying, guys. There's a lot of Israelites, Danites, so many other people included in these Phoenician ships. So that's the hijack with the Canaanite generalization.
But they, of course, clashed with the ancient cultures in Israel. They were not a fan of Joshua. They actually had some carvings found where they did not like Joshua. And he moved them over to Sidon, which is in Lebanon. And then the Phoenicians spread out across North Africa, and Carthage is a Phoenician city.
So they had beef with Joshua. Quetzalcoatl. They had beef with Joshua just like the Moabites did, huh? Who's the Moabites? They had beef with Joshua. Who's Joshua? What's he talking about? Now he's talking about Bible stuff, right? So what thought we talking about history? Now you're talking about Bible. Now we gotta you see what I'm saying? So who's Joshua in history? And what you talking about? Because the Moabites, they called Joshua Drew at least said Joshua the robber. Joshua kicked us out, and then we had to ask permission. Just like he's saying, the Phoenicians had to go to Sidon, Lebanon. Moabites had to ask permission to the Pharaoh to settle Morocco, Tunisia, North Africa. He just said North Africa. It's literally the same story. It's all happened in the true old world, though. That's the whole point.
It's often referred to as just Carthage, but they're Phoenician people. So they had coinage that they would call map coins. And what they would do is, it was pretty brilliant, actually. They were sort of advertising everywhere that they had trade and commerce in the world. And scholars, at the bottom of the coin, you can see that map there. And this is what some scholars, most scholars have interpreted it to be, America, you have Britain there, you have Europe, Africa, Mediterranean, Asia. So
you guys hear that? I didn't know this. Learning something new today. Look at that. So that coin they're saying shows the continents, America, Europe, and Asia, in that ancient coin. You guys see what he's showing you, right? It's a flat map, too. Woo, man. With the horse, right? Where did the horse originate? In America. You can Google that right now. Origin of horse. Not where he got domesticated, because Google tries to play. No, keep scrolling down. It says origin of horse, 55 million years ago, North America. That's what it's going to tell you. But we got a video on that. So they knew about so-called ancient America, talking about Columbus was lost, talking about they didn't know the new world. What you mean new world? What you mean new world?
essentially, the Phoenicians traded all over the world. Now, when we talk about ancient cultures sailing the seas, right? I'm sure this crowd especially knows that it's debated, right? You have your diffusionists, which are, yes, obviously ancient cultures traded with each other, talked with each other, and you have your isolationists, which are some of your traditional stuck in the mud archaeologists that say no, everybody was isolated, and different symbols and goods popping up or just coincidences, or the funniest explanations are, you actually find lots of Roman coins all over the eastern United States. Well, some collector, had a whole bag and just dumped them in the Ohio River, right? I mean, they say really odd stuff like this, and they're a dying breed. It's changing, but anyway, that's the poll. That's the contention.
So the irony, right, is like, there's the fusionists and then isolationists. Well, we don't fall under none of those tags, words, or categories they try to group people into. The fusionists meaning people travel the world, of course. Like why would you debate trade? Like, that's so silly to me. The notion, yeah, he's saying the isolationists are a dying breed. Well, the diffusion is about to be a dying breed, man. Like, because they think the fusionists literally are the ones who say everybody came to America and that is not part of local indigenous people that created all these things. That's why that's a dying breed too. He's a dying breed too. This is the truth. Like, when the truth comes out and becomes mainstream, you're gonna see, guys. Like, everybody's gonna be like, "Oh, why didn't I think of that? It's so logical. Why didn't I just? It was right in front of us the whole time. It was right in front of us the whole time. No ism or schism. Yeah, you already know, Bob. No isms or schisms.
So back to the Phoenicians. So this is in Monaghan Island. Anybody familiar with Ogham? So this is ancient Celtic writing. So most of your ancestors here, I imagine, wrote in this. If you guys have some of the same ancestry as I do, I imagine. So here, Barry Fell, in his book, he writes about this in America, BC. So this inscription says, cargo ships from Phoenicia. And again, this is an island just off of Maine. And it's written in Ogham. So either the ancient Celts were writing it here because it was Phoenician port and to leave it alone, or the Phoenicians wrote it in Ogham, so the Celts would leave it alone. We're not quite sure.
All right, do you guys understand what they're talking about now? Yeah, we got to dodge the hijack a lot of the time, but it's a good drop. So what are they finding here, right? They're finding, and we've gone over this, ancient Ogham script. Ogham, right? ancient Celtic writing, right? Ogham. And it's a like he just quoted from Barry Fell, right? We know who Barry Fell is, right? The director of what's that called? Ah, epigraphy, epigraphical society, right? He's a director, where they study ancient. They're experts in ancient script, ancient writings, guys. Epigraphy, right? And so Barry Fell is like, yeah, this is definitely Ogham. And not only that, Barry Fell, this is from the book America BC, right? Like we've read this book. We've read from Barry. We everybody he's quoting so far, we are very informed in. You guys are informed in, even if you might not remember, you guys are. So Barry Fell said not only is they're finding Ogham here and all these other ancient scripts, and he points out a lot in his book, but it's a older form and a more archaic form of Ogham than what they find in Europe. That's supposed to be the place of their origin. Why would you find a more older form in the Americas, but they're supposed to be from somewhere else? And remember the currents bringing you over to where? The British Isles. It's a lot easier to go in that way, guys. 4 times harder. If anybody was to cross the Atlantic, first, according to the most famous historian on navigation, peer-reviewed, very credited person, he said it would have to be from the Americas, even if it was by accident, because the currents, the winds, everything. All right, so he's saying, I want to point out, he was like, so maybe the Phoenicians wrote this so the Celtic could read it, or maybe the Celtic wrote, like maybe they don't know. You see, guys, they're conjecturing why are they finding all this stuff here, but you want to keep ignoring the fact that maybe it was ancient Americans. It was ancient Americans who brought all this stuff out. Like this is the true old world. Like we're talking about the oldest lands. I'm gonna do the world's oldest. Again, we got another video coming, world's oldest. I'm gonna remind everybody. This is the same areas of the oldest land in the world, guys. Like this is the same areas. So he doesn't know. He gives up conjecture. This is what they do. As I want to point it out, they just conjecture. We just listen and listen and listen, and we end up believing it. We end up believing it. He's like, oh, maybe the things Phoenicians came here and wrote it in Ogham. Like, what? Are you serious? Why? You're not even explaining why they would like. What Phoenicians? Who exactly are you talking about? Give me a name. Give me one person. You're just generalizing. This is what I'm saying, guys. Who are you talking about?
But it was used in Ogham, and it's essentially a sign that says this is a Phoenician port. Leave it alone. So we've got a presence there in Maine. Okay, and this is
that was in Maine. Okay, that was in Maine. They found that, right? In Maine. All right, so he's going to show something else here.
Really interesting quote I stumbled on in my research. So this is by Dr. James Gillian, former vice president of Yankton College in Illinois. And my dad's family is from Illinois, so I like all Illinois stuff. So he says, a professional team of archaeologists and linguists have made a systematic sweep of the upper Midwest in about 1992, finding conclusive evidence that the Phoenicians had indeed sailed up the Mississippi River on a regular basis.
Regular basis.
Farmers in Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, and Michigan, while clearing their field, that should be fields.
The so-called Phoenicians was up and down the Mississippi regularly. He's telling you, hey, they proved it. We found so much ancient Phoenician and all this other stuff that they call Minoan Phoenician and all this other stuff all over the Mississippi, the Great Nile, the Great River, the real Nile, the Great River, right? Ancient, this is the true old world. So yeah, that makes sense to me. But then they're using all these words to throw us up. Phoenicians. What Phoenicians? Give me a name, dude. Who are you talking about? Show me what record are you talking about? What ancient primary source is he reading, right? Are they going off? Listen to what I'm about to ask you. Like, what ancient script or primary source are you going off that says so-called Phoenicians, wherever you think they are, came to the Americas and sailed up and down the Mississippi regularly. Where are you getting this from, guys? Where are they getting this from? They're getting that from nowhere, guys. This is conjectures because they're finding all these things in the Mississippi. They're finding the script. They're finding drawings of ships in the rock. Remember, we have a whole video that we read her book, Gloria Farley, in plain sight. Gloria Farley, right? In plain sight. She has a whole chapter we read about all the ancient ship glyphs all over the Americas. What looked like Phoenician, Viking, Chinese, like big ships. We were sailing. We had ships here, guys. We were sailing the whole world, and these rivers were the highways. The rivers were the highways, yeah. Before a lot of the dams they built, they cut off a lot of the highways, the connections, the rivers that they were, yeah, they cut those off, building their dams and flooded a lot of towns and stuff. So, yeah, we dodged the hijack again. They find something here again. It says, I'm gonna read that part. It says, finding conclusive evidence, right? They swept the Midwest in 1992, right? This is what he just said. Finding conclusive evidence that the Phoenicians had indeed sailed up the Mississippi River on regular basis. On regular basis. On regular basis. But yeah, that's not part of history at school, right? What Phoenicians? Show me. All right.
In the 1800s, often found rocks inscribed with odd letters in unknown written languages. Many inscriptions were written in Punic, which of course is Phoenician. So very interesting.
So you see where they got their conclusion from. Of course, that's Phoenician. They found Punic type, what they're calling Punic, just like they were calling that other tablet in Michigan, Minoan script. They're calling something Punic script. I'm sorry to keep cutting out. I just want to be able to explain this correctly. All right. And that's the whole evidence that Phoenicians, somebody called Phoenicians, came and sailed up and down the Mississippi because they found a writing on the rock. Think about that, guys. They found a writing on the rock that looks like what they call Punic, even though it's literally just like an archaic form of Paleo-Hebrew pictographs that we have here in the ancient Americas. We're talking about the real now, up and down the real now, the Great River. Mississippi means Great River in the Ojibwe, Algonquin languages, right? We're talking about it goes through Illinois, Little Cairo, Memphis, a whole map, right? Like we know where ancient Egypt was, right? Shout out to UBTB. So in the 1800s, they were finding all this stuff, rocks, scribes, inscribed with letters in an unknown written language, unknown. Many inscriptions were written in Punic. The rest they don't know. You see what it says? So they picked one thing they recognized. Oh, that's Punic right there. Oh, it was Punic who came. Yeah, but you've seen it in reverse, guys. That's what I'm trying to explain to you guys. Anybody that's new to the channel, they've been seeing it and telling us history in reverse. We brought those languages out. That writing, it has a source. It's very similar, so-called Punic. And he just said it's Phoenician. That's Paleo-Hebrew. Paleo-Block Hebrew. Found all over the Americas.
I think most scholars acknowledge this, but they just are careful because of the politics in academics, right? Egyptians. These guys were druggies.
What?
So I won't talk a lot about the Egyptians, but they're a German scientist, and I'm going to slaughter this pronunciation, but Sloveta Balabovanova, which sounds more Russian than German, but was studying the remains of Lady Hanut Talu, a member of basically an Egyptian princess. And what she finds there are traces of cocaine and nicotine. Again, only native to the Americas. That is not found anywhere else in the world. And so we see it show up in ancient mummies in Egypt.
Okay. I mean, haven't we proven this already? What's all this doing over there showing up? All these American things, right? Corn and all that, right? I mean, you guys see my corn videos, right? We've shown that exact image. I know where he got that image. He got that from Gunnar Thompson video. Ancient Egyptian maize. Ancient American Egyptian maize documentary we've shown. So they're finding corn in the hieroglyphics over there. Corn is native to the Americas. They find it all over there. The animals of the Egyptian gods, they're all American animals. Let's go.
They're pretty sure this was used ceremonially, but you know, who knows? Could be recreational. Corn. Corn is another thing you see all over ancient Egypt. There, in murals, carvings, everything. It's native to the Americas.
Listen.
It is not from Egypt or anywhere in the Middle East.
Okay.
It came from the Americas.
It came from the Americas, period. Talking about logic. You got no logic, man. You don't know where corn's from, man. You don't have no logic, man.
And you see that all over Egypt. So the Egyptians definitely traded. A lot of scholars think they used the Phoenicians because they were the sailors. But they definitely had American goods.
We think possibly we think that they traded with the You see how they could use that word now, Phoenicians. Now you just who is he talking about the whole time when he's saying Phoenicians? I know what you think it is. They tell you when you Google in Wikipedia. Who's a Phoenician? Give me a name though. So we think the Egyptians, what Egyptians? Ancient Egypt was in America. So yeah, they were dealing with seafaring peoples. Yeah, ancient Egyptians from America dealing with seafaring merchants who are going around the world, yeah? That doesn't mean the merchants are not from America too. I'm trying to have context. I'm trying to have you guys think about all the stuff we miss, like we're not even thinking about when we're hearing these lectures and these people talk about what they're finding here, and we're hearing their opinions about what they're finding here. So yeah, they're giving us the drop of what they're finding here and what they're finding in ancient Egypt, but then they give us their conjectures on top of that. Yeah, AJ Morgan, 600 out of 640 food crops grown in Africa actually originated in America. You guys can verify that. That's truth. That's true. That's what I'm saying when talking about, oh, they came here because of commerce earlier, right? Like, it was all because of, okay, so how did they know all this stuff was here? And who are they buying it from? You're not telling us. Who's the so-called Phoenicians? You're just the same people. You just want us to think it has nothing to do with ancient Americans. That's what I'm trying to tell you guys. Talk about logic. We have no logic. Use your logic. If it's all being found here. All right.
Yeah, there's actually been marijuana that has showed up in mummies too. So these guys were druggies.
Druggies. Oh wow.
Hebrews. So Hebrews are the more interesting one because so the Hebrews were not colonizers. They weren't traders. And that really goes back to their theology of a holy land, a promised land. They really didn't go about the world. So it's really puzzling that we see Hebrews showing up, and we see them show up mostly in North America. Very little, if any, in Meso or South America. So
Hebrews, huh? So-called Hebrews showing up all over North America. What's he talking about? So Phoenicians didn't include any Hebrews? Like, what's a Hebrew, guys? That's more like a language. So what's a Hebrew too? I know a lot of people are going to give me different opinions about that. But there's a lot of type of Hebrews, and not all Hebrews are Israelites. Not all Hebrews are sons of Jacob. So who exactly is doing all the inscriptions and where you're finding them, or what are they saying? We're talking about 10 commandments and things like that. Who was involved with the Israelites, right? So we're not talking about all so-called Hebrews every time. Whatever you think a Hebrew is. But he's letting you know the deep drop right now, right? Going back to the, This is the true promised land. This is why they're finding ancient scripts over here, Paleo Hebrew, all that in the mounds. They dug this out of the mounds, and it's not. It was official, dug by official Smithsonian people, archaeologists. They found this stuff. It's not a hoax, not a conspiracy. It's official. It's in their museums, and they try to sugarcoat it. They try to explain it away with their theories of diffusionism. Diffusionists. They came from somewhere else. Who came? Give me a name. Where you get that from? What primary source are you reading that say so-called Hebrews? Who wrote? Where are you getting this from? It came from my head. It came from my head, Kurimeo. Well, then if you're going to conjecture, then I can conjecture more logically since you're finding this stuff here. And I would say maybe that's American indigenous people, things you're finding. You want to call them Hebrews, Egyptians, Minoans, Phoenicians, Celtics, all this other stuff, instead of who they really are. Like all these tags you want to associate, because you got us already thinking these things mean on the other side of the older world. So when you throw that word at us as a spell, we get stuck in the spell again. Like Phoenicians, we're picturing what they told us all our lives of Phoenician is. We're picturing what it mean known, Egyptian. We got these ideas and things in our head we got to break out of. Empty your cup. That's why they get away with saying things like this and generalizing so much. It's not just about complexion either, man.
There is 8 evidences. There's more, but these are the ones I like. So we talked about the Newark Decalogue stone. This was in Newark. This had the 10 Commandments. We showed it earlier. Back Creek stone is really interesting. And again, this isn't necessarily related to Michigan, but I'm just showing ancient cultures knew about this area. So the Back Creek stone was found by the Smithsonian Institute, which traditionally is isolationist in doctrine. They are not diffusionists at all. So Smithsonian archaeologists find this. They put it in their museum, the Smithsonian Museum, and they call it Cherokee. Well, it's not till, I don't know, maybe 80 years later, Dr. Cyrus Gordon says, you have this thing upside down. Turn it right side up. It's Old Hebrew. It says, for Judea. That is the bottom one there. For Judea and Block Hebrew. So, oops. The Smithsonian can't deny that one, right? They just ignore it. Lost Luna stone, Decalogue stone, has the 10 Commandments in New Mexico. I've never been there. I would love to see it. I have seen the Tucson artifacts, which are really interesting. And you also see Roman artifacts showing up in the Tucson stuff. And then there's a Hebrew petroglyph in New Mexico as well. So something was going on in the Southwest as well. So we started to see these little pockets of ancient culture showing up. Really, really interesting. The Hanukkah or the Hanukkah earthworks, let me show you a picture of that real quick. Again, found by the Smithsonian. Squire and Davis wrote about this. It was actually in the first official publication of the Smithsonian Institute. Obviously, you see a menorah there, and then you see an oil lamp. So sacred symbols to the Hebrews. Unfortunately, the Army Corps of Engineers ordered this destroyed. So this is no longer, this is plowed over. This does not exist. And that's a whole discussion as to why that may have happened. That's a whole other lecture. Read about John Wesley Powell, and you'll start to see where this all connects. Not a good dude. Okay, and then I think I didn't bring my oil lamp. I do have one that dates to about 72 AD, but it's just beautiful, beautiful thing, and it's a tragedy that was destroyed. Okay, so we set the stage with ancient cultures a little bit. I think it's unquestionable that there was contact with the Americas, and
I think there's no question this is a true old world. Not just about contact. There's definitely proof old world people were here. Old world artifacts were found here. Old world languages were found here. Old world customs, old world everything was found here. If it walks what is it? If it talks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it moves like a duck, it eats, then it's a duck. It's not a Phoenician.
It's not all North America. It's Central and South America as well. And the Phoenicians were definitely in Brazil. There is a stone there that is translated. They had a shipwreck there, and they left some markings there. But we're going to go back up to North America and set the stage here for the Michigan artifacts. Okay. Setting the stage here. These are found from 1848 to 1920. These are artifacts with a mixture of languages containing biblical scenes, even some New Testament themes, old world dress, just really unusual things. Most of the languages are cuneiform and Egyptian, and just a mixture of that. So in 1890, so we'll run through the timeline here, and this really kind of tells the story quite well. In 1890, James Scotford reports his first findings, and this is where publicity around it really starts to kind of pick up. People start to really hear about it, although they were found as early as 1848 in Michigan. So in 1907, Daniel Soper, who was a former Secretary of State for Michigan, really respected member of the community, and Reverend James Savage, a clergyman that, again, had a following of people that really respected, people absolutely loved, adored this man. They begin building their own collections. And again, more awareness begins to build around it. Now, on a national scale, you have Bishop Rudolph Eisenhower, who was a missionary of the RLDS Church, and he publishes something. So he publishes a pamphlet called Engravings of Prehistoric Specimens from Michigan, USA. So this puts it on the national map. So now you start to have scholars around the country, scholars back in Boston, New York, that cry foul and start to say that, you know, there's no way these can be real. We need to study these. Or, you know, how would this biblical stuff show up? So the controversy really sort of heats up here. And so what they do, I mean, it really was sort of pretty hot in the day. I mean, this was in a lot of the newspapers. So a lot of scholars, what they do is they form a national committee to investigate it here. And so this committee is led by Professor Frederick Starr of the University of Chicago, Roswell Field, great name, of the Chicago Examiner, and Dr. James Talmage, director of the Deseret Museum, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with Talmage. And Talmage, I got to say, so it's really interesting, not quite what you'd think. So Talmage, these made him nervous more than they did excited. So because they were controversial already, Talmage didn't want the Mormon Church associated with them. So he came out with the mindset of kind of disproving them. And it's a little bit hard to understand, but that's the way he was looking at it. It's important to know that background. And then we know during the time some of the brethren were split between it, but he was sort of a traditional academic by trade, and just thought it was too controversial, and it worried him. So let's see, where was I? So what they do is they do some excavations, and this whole committee digs up these mounds, and they find lots of artifacts. And so essentially, Professor Starr issues a report that says, yeah, we've found tablets and we found effigy pipes, but clearly, you know, these had to have been, you know, put in by sleight of hand while we weren't looking, because there's just no way this can show up. And again, it goes back to the political environment of these academics, right? It could be professional suicide if he had acknowledged them. But what's really interesting,
that's corruption. That's straight corruption right there. Gatekeeping, corruption. That's bad. That's so bad.
Personally found one of the tablets, and it was wrapped in roots of a tree. The tree was at least 200 years old. They had to cut the roots back. They had to cut them back. And he pulled it out, and he still issued this report, you know, crying foul. So
he's saying they even found a tablet inside the mound, right? They had all this Hebrew, Paleo Hebrew, right? So-called Phoenician. Hold on, let me break this down. So-called Phoenician script. And it even had a root going through it, or they had to cut just to get to the tablet, right? underground, and they're still said somebody must have buried that. They still told people, no, that was a hoax. Somebody probably put that in there, even though they had to cut through a whole route. This is all written down. This is I've shown you guys this, like the documentaries and stuff. All right, but then they find something over there on the other side where they want us to think history happened. Oh, look what we found! Look, and they make a big deal about it. The whole, History Channel with the dude from Sahawaz, Hawaz, whatever his name is, the gatekeeper over there. We found the tomb. We found this. But they downplay what they find here in the ancient America, right? He's letting you know, man.
Really interesting, but not helpful, obviously. So Talmage, so this committee breaks up, but Talmage is still out here, still interested, still worried about it. So he takes Scotford out and goes out with him. They dig into a mound and they find a tablet. So he says, okay, and he's still skeptical, and he takes out Soper with him as well. They dig into 2 mounds and they find 2 more tablets. Well, he then ventures by himself and explores 22 mounds and doesn't find anything. And so for him, that cements it in his mind, these aren't real. So he goes back, tells Salt Lake, let's just leave these alone. These aren't real. And he even accuses Scotford of forging the artifacts. Now, it simmers a little bit. So we're going to jump up to 1953. So Judge Cloudstone of Peoria, Illinois, asked respected Chicago attorney, author, and scientist Henrietta Mertz to study the collection because he owns several himself and was really interested in it. Now, Henrietta Mertz was awesome. So she was probably the most qualified person in the entire world to study these. She was a code breaker in World War II. She worked for the OSS. Was a code breaker, was trained at PhD in linguistics with a specialty in forgery. There was no better scholar in the entire world at the time to study these artifacts and to give an opinion on whether they were real or not. So, what does she conclude? She concludes that they are absolutely genuine, without question. And she reports that back to the judge, reports her findings publicly, and then starts a book. And unfortunately, she dies before it's published, but I saw somebody holding it. Somebody have Henrietta's, oh, it's on the table? Oh, yeah.
Symbol.
Yeah, so that's her book, and it's published after she dies, but she absolutely believes they are genuine, and she gives her reasons in the whole book. Her theory is that they were Coptic Christians. That came around 325 AD because the Coptics were persecuted by the Roman Church. And that's around the Council of Nicaea, where the Roman Church sort of said, okay, we're going to go with Trinity, we're going to go with whatever else. And they did it ruthlessly. So without getting into that, her theory was that the Coptic Christians fled and came to the Americas.
So he was talking about the book, The Mystic Symbol, which we actually got into. We haven't fully read most of it. We read like 1 chapter, I think, so far. I don't know if you guys remember. It was a Michigan tablet one. So we read that where he was quoting that lady, Mertz, and it says her book published when she passed away. But they try to downplay her book. They just say, no, she's just making it all up. And we got that book. We're going to continue reading from that book. That's what I'm saying. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. If you're not tuned in, tune in. Don't just wait for notifications. Make sure you're here. You check daily or every other day. I upload almost every day. I'm shadow banned, but again, we're going to continue reading these books and getting the babies out, pulling out all the good stuff and dodging the hijack and putting it all together, right? From these different people doing different researches, all telling us the same thing, showing us this is the true old world. Okay.
And so that's why there's some New Testament scenes. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But okay, now we're going to jump back a little bit, actually, sorry. So in 1960, current LDS Church elders, Bird and Roundy, they meet with Father Charles Sheedy of Notre Dame, and they strike up a friendship, and it's a priest. They're not necessarily trying to teach him, but they strike up a friendship. So Father Sheedy goes and gets these artifacts. So what happens was there was a huge collection that has now become known as the Savage Soper collection. So Father Savage died and he willed it to Notre Dame. That's how it ended up there. Then it went into a basement. The Catholic priests were wary of it too, and they're academics as well. So he thought that these missionaries would be interested in it, so they brought him up and showed the elders. So the elders wrote back to Salt Lake, and at the time, Elder Milton R. Hunter was the church guy, or the history guy for the church. He had written a lot of history that we'd talked about before, so he was the go-to guy. So the church leaders, LDS church leaders, send out Elder Milton R. Hunter, and he is excited about them, loves them, and Father Sheedy says, "Okay, they're yours. Just take them." And at this time, there were about 800 pieces. The collection had dwindled, and pieces were broken, and some really nice pieces actually were broken. But anyway, there's about 800 pieces, and he ships them back to Salt Lake. So now they end up in the church museum, but really it's the warehouse. So the church is still the LDS church, trying to be non-denominational here. Sorry for some vocabulary if I slip into. So the LDS church was still a little weary about them. My grandfather believed, after studying them for years, so he then studies them for the next, till 1973, believes without a doubt that they're authentic.
All right, guys, if you don't know what he's talking about now, he's talking about the actual tablets written, right, in the ancient so-called Mi'kmaq script, which they say is very similar to an ancient type of Egyptian script. We've shown the comparisons, guys. That's why I said you got to catch up with just Google it, just Google Mi'kmaq and ancient Egyptian Mormon tablet, right? And you might see it. So there's, right, remember, so the story behind the tablets, right, that they found it in a cave. The angel Moroni took Joseph, and Joseph found these tablets, these golden tablets. They found them here in America, and that's what he based his whole Bible off, the Mormon Bible. This is what I was trying to tell you guys earlier. A lot of their Bible is based on the fact that America is the true old world. They found all this ancient stuff here. The Israelites were here, Hebrews, Egyptians, all this other stuff. Okay? But that doesn't mean that's religion. That just means they found these tablets, which was indigenous tablets, guys. Listen, indigenous golden tablets, just like the ones they've had found in South America and in Central America. Right? And then he's saying they grabbed them, put them in a warehouse, and that his grandfather had access to the original ones. You guys hear that? Now that's interesting. His grandfather, the guy who wrote archaeology in the Book of Mormon, which we're going to get into. I don't know if we'll get into it today now, because we're kind of taking long, but don't worry, even if it's tomorrow, but we'll get into it, guys. But he's saying they had in a warehouse, his grandfather had access to it. So imagine and he said, my grandfather said these were authentic. Like, they really found this in a cave in New York, guys. Who that angel Moroni was? Moroni, who brought Joseph Smith there, and he knew what the tablets were. We're supposed to assume as an angel, like, who brought him there? This angel the Mormon, Mormon. So he's talking about his grandfather had access to it. The original tablets they based their whole religion off, which is an indigenous golden tablets they found in New York, guys. This is real. This is what they based the Mormon stuff off. And his grandfather had access to it. All right? And he said they're authentic. Let's continue. What else?
He actually begins a manuscript about them in 1973. Unfortunately, he starts to get sick. And then in 1974, he donates the collection or wills it to the LDS Church. And in 75, he passes away. So in the meantime, they are in the church museum, the LDS Church Museum warehouse in Salt Lake City, just kind of in a dark room, not getting a lot of love. So then people like in the interim, people like Wayne May have studied them, and others, and the church has let people have access to them and so forth. And there's been some things written on them, but they sort of were just, wasting away in the dark. So in 2000, the church notified our family about the possible donation to Michigan, because Michigan archaeologists from the University of Michigan had said they wanted to study it. And, let's get it out of the warehouse and let's have our scholars look at it. So this, so the church informed us of this, and they did say, and by the way, no legal action can stop us from doing this, but we're just, we're giving you a heads up, we're telling you. But, they were nice about it, of course, and our family consents to it. Now, if you consider what's going on here, so they're sitting in a dark warehouse for decades, right? And if the church tells my family that scholars are going to want to study it, of course, right? That's what you're going to do, right? I mean, that makes total sense. So family consents, but before the church, the LDS church, donates them to Michigan, there is a professor by the name of Richard Stamps, who was a member of the LDS Church, and he wrote a paper called Tools Leave Marks, Material Analysis of the Scotford Soper Savage Michigan Relics. It essentially, I'll just summarize. So he essentially says that a lot of these tablets had metal tools used when they were carved, and we got to throw them out because of that. Now, it's interesting because tools were found, but it doesn't matter. And it goes back to this political environment with academics, but that was the stamp of death, if you will. So after that came out, because he was a member of the LDS Church, that was the final nail in the coffin. So the church then donated it to the University of Michigan, or the Michigan State, and then it goes into the museum there. So let's go here. Michigan State, sorry, I always get that confused. So immediately, the Michigan Historical Museum, which is the museum there on campus, puts up their artifacts under display of archaeological frauds. So obviously my family was really upset about it. And we don't know really what happened, and it's really, really important not to put any blame on anybody. The church may have not known they're going to do that. They may have, who knows? But it's pointless to put any blame on it. The family thought it was the best thing to do because scholars were going to study it, but it turns out to be really, really unfortunate. So they put them up as frauds. They run a exhibit for a while, and then they put it in a dark warehouse. So, fast years go by, blah blah blah. There's activists around it like Wayne May and stuff that are just we're trying to get them back, and my aunt there in the back, Linda Hunter, but it's done, right? Legally, it's done. So in 2014, this became sort of a personal mission of mine, and I was sure as heck going to try. So what I did is I arranged a meeting. This was last June or June 2014, with the head archaeologist Eric Perkins that was in charge of the collection in the Michigan Museum. He said, "Sure, come on out." I hooked up with Ryan there at Nephite Explorer. We're gonna, I'm the PR guy, right? Let's get a little bit of coverage around this. And so we went out, and me and Ryan Fisher, and they were really nice. They rolled out the red carpet. They set up photography lights. They had tables of the collection out, and Eric spent 4 hours with us. I mean, I cannot say a bad thing about him. And, we had these sort of, Ryan would interview him sort of in a journalist perspective, and then I would ask questions here and there. And so we had a lot of discussions with him. And of course, he wasn't a believer, and he knew we were, I'm sure, but he was very tactful. And so essentially, a few things he kept coming back to is, we just don't know what to do with these. There's a mixture of languages and cultures, and there's cuneiform and Egyptian. They just don't fall anywhere, and that's we just, we just don't know what to do with him. That was funny, but that was the thing he kept coming back with. And he knew at one point. So, I had Ryan wandered off for a minute, and I had him alone. I said, you know what I'm going to ask, right? And Eric's like, yeah, I know what you're going to ask. The family would love to get these back. We didn't know they were going to be displayed this way. Is there anything we can do? And he said, no, there's nothing we can do legally. This isn't uncommon for, one generation to donate something and then the next generation wanted it back. And there's laws that are put in place because this happens a lot. So I said, well, look, there's a lot of wealthy members of the LDS Church that are willing to donate a lot of money to get these back. I mean, we're talking millions. And he said that legally I can't. Once they are donated, it becomes the property of the people of Michigan. So I made my case. There's just nothing we can do unless some brilliant legal mind, figures out some maneuver. But as of now, that's what the law says. So he promised Ryan and I that anybody that wanted to go see this collection, that he would get them out. And I know a couple of people that have done it, and he's kept his promise. So the strategy right now is let's just overwhelm them with requests, right? So let's at least get it out of the warehouse and get it to where they'll put at least a permanent display. Let's get the Michigan members to know about it, not just members of the church. I'm sorry. I mean, anybody interested in this from Michigan, let's get them to know. A lot of people just don't know about that. So
you guys, maybe I can show a little context. All right. Let me see if we can. So this is what he's saying. Like, they're literally hiding this stuff in their little warehouses, right? Don't worry. I was listening to the whole thing with my cell phone. I know I walked away, but so let's say Michigan relics tablets, right? All right. Okay, if you don't understand what they're talking about, it's the stuff we've shown already, right? Look, guys, you see that? They found this in Michigan, guys. All this stuff they try to say it's a hoax. They're trying to tell us it's a hoax. You guys see that? That's what he's talking about. His family had it. He's saying, like, then he trusted somebody so they can study it, and then they just threw it in a warehouse. They just threw these things in a warehouse. They found this in ancient America. Michigan relics. Look. Oh, look, this side don't work, but this symbol, you see, that's like a type of ancient script that they recognize. Michigan relics documentary. Look. You guys see? This is what they're finding. And this is what they're hiding, guys. Because this type of stuff, if it went public, we would question. Like, we would say, wait a minute. That looks like whatever, Punic, Phoenician, Hebrew, whatever you want to call it. Oh, that looks like, oh, what type of language is that? And then that proves there was ancient script here, ancient people, they were writing. They were very advanced. So this is what they're hiding, and what he's saying, why don't you display it so everybody has access to it, not just the religious people? Why don't you display any of this stuff, not just the religious people, right? Like, we've gone over it. If you're new to my channel, this is the kind of videos we show. We've shown this stuff, the research, the stories behind who excavated it, where it happened to it, where to go, what is it saying? You see? What looks like so-called Egyptian hieroglyphics. They found all kinds of this stuff, not just in Michigan. This is just one place. So if it was just Michigan, we would be like, oh yeah, that might be. But they found stuff like this all over the Americas. All over the Americas. So just adding some context to what he's talking about right now, guys. If you're paying attention. This is what they're hiding. This is what they're gatekeeping. They don't want people to see these things. Okay? and it has like, they all have like that symbol, which seems to mean something. This little, I forgot. We wrote about it, like we read about it in that lady's book, what she thinks it means, right? Well, it makes a lot of sense. But you guys see that? Look, the fleur-de-lis, the three things, the crown, just like the Incas had, and just what became a lot of it, the flores, which is a representation of the maize a lot of the time. Like, this is pretty cool stuff. Like, this is what they're hiding, right? Michigan relics. All right. Wake up, wakey, wakey. So look at this. Black slate Savage collection near Grayling, Crawford County, Michigan. Was found 1909. The one on the right is copper. This is from a copper thing, right? Remember copper, purest copper in the world, right? Look at what's on it. Wow. Wow. That has nothing to do with Christianity. That was the hijack too. So near Grayling, Crawford County, Michigan, July 8th, 1909. This is what they're finding. All right. Are you guys watching? Yeah. So you guys understand now what he's talking about? Yeah, can I get a confirmation? You guys understand what he's talking about? Yeah. Do I have to show more? Look at this. That's what they're finding here in Michigan, guys. Look at this. Yeah. Of course, they're not going to allow that to be public. Of course, they ain't going to allow rewrite. That would debunk all their false history. All their false history. Of course, they're not going to allow this to be public. Okay, we're good then. That's what he's talking about. Okay? Just to have context, what he's trying to have access to, what he's trying to make public, available for everybody, what his grandfather had access to. This is what his grandfather had access to.
There is, and I can give it to you after as well, but there's his contact info. If you're ever in Michigan, in Lansing, go see him. So that's all I got right now. Is we just got to overwhelm them with requests. So you can write that down, or just come see me after, and I'll give that to you. Very nice gentlemen. They're very cordial. So let's.
You see what he's saying? He's saying, hey, contact the museum people. There's the contact. All right. I know a lot of you are, you do these kind of things. Hey, that's a way to help. That's a way to, I don't know, make them aware, put them on notice. Say, hey, what's up with all the relics you got there in the warehouse? Why can't we see it? It says strategy: overwhelm the museum with requests to see collection and trigger a permanent display. Eric Perkins, Michigan State archaeologist. Okay, that's the guy right there. Perkins at michigan.gov. That's his number right there, guys. All right. Go see the collection. Go see the collection.
Let's do it. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about, sorry. You bet. It's Perkins at michigan.gov, 517-373-3559. I can give that to you too when you come up afterward. So, what makes the Michigan artifacts really interesting is the mystic symbol, and that's what Henrietta Mertz titled her book. This is from Wayne May, who's studied this a lot. He says the mystic symbol is written in a script known as cuneiform, which is common throughout the Middle East.
Okay, so there's little lines. That's what I couldn't remember the word. Cuneiform. Cuneiform is supposed to be like Sumerian, Assyrian, ancient, very ancient type of script from the so-called old world. So that's what a common pattern or script found in all the tablets. It's like a mark or a signature, right? That's what he's talking about. See the one on the left up here? So watch.
This symbol has been found in many North American states such as Maine, Wisconsin, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Missouri, and Utah.
Okay, not just in Michigan. You see all those states they find in stuff? This is what I'm saying. So all of them are hoaxes. Like this guy, a mysterious hoaxer, is just doing this all over the world, all over North America and all over the Americas. He's so expert at making it look like it's the ancient strata because geologists can tell, guys. Geologists can say, no, this has been disturbed. No, this is the original strata. This was found right here. Geologists know, guys. Archaeologists know if it's been disturbed now. So you're saying one guy went around with a couple people and just for no reason, nobody knows their name, no fame, no money, nothing. They just did it just because, just to pull a prank on everybody, right? Talking about logic. Oh, you gotta have logic. Yeah, you got no logic, Kevin.
A Native American of Minnesota identified this symbol as the name for the creator's son, Yod-Heh-Vah, and that's phonetic. So Yod-Heh-Vah, which of course is very close to Jehovah or Yahweh. And that is that symbol there in the middle there.
All right, you're saying you see what the trademark symbol is? He said, yo, he's dodged the hijack, all right? You mean Yahweh, 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 Yahweh. Oh, that's what the signature is, huh? And all these tablets, right? So who might we be talking about? Who made this stuff? You talk that you don't know. You can't, and now you're hiding. And found all over North America, right? Yahweh.
When cuneiform looks like a bunch of sticks. So David Dill is another researcher that has spent decades studying the Michigan artifacts.
Man, look at this one, guys. Oh man, hold up. I've never seen this one. Yeah, that's a dragon right there. Look at that. Yeah, look at that. An Indian fighting a dragon. Oh, you thought it was just knights in Europe fighting dragons, huh? You thought it was just over there in Europe, right? You thought medieval Europe only, huh? Oh, you forgot about the Pisa monster in the Mississippi? The Dracan, huh? She fighting a dragon. He or she fighting a dragon. Let's see what they're gonna say. Yeah, look at that. Come on now. How about the Dracons out there? Check this out, yo. Somebody show this to drop. Yeah. Yo, 9 Spiral. What it do?
So he believes. So you see a lot those two symbols circled, and he interpreted these as a form of actually cuneiform and Hebrew, sort of a mixture, meaning sun on the right hand and sun on the left hand. And this really refers to the two gods, right? The dark god and the good god. And you see this throughout these artifacts. You can kind of see it there, sun on the left hand and sun on the right hand. And then so this is the big reason why Henrietta Mertz believed that they were Coptic Christians. So, and David Dill did as well. So the Coptics believed that Lucifer or Satan and Christ were brothers, descended from a God, a heavenly Father. And so only Coptic Christians believe that, according to these folks, right? I mean, members of the LDS Church also believe it, but what they concluded was these had to have been Coptics at the time because there's nobody else has this doctrine. No other sect has this. No other tradition has this except for the Coptics, and the LDS folks have it as well. But so you see this all over. But that is really the main. And then some of the symbology is Coptic oriented. We get the bird a lot there, a crow type figure. The rooster shows up a lot. So it really seems like there is some influence from that. Again, that's just their That's just their guess, but that's kind of what they both concluded. And if you read her book, she'll talk a lot about that. This is some pictures I took. Ryan took a lot better pictures. So I apologize. I'm not a photographer. I'm not even an average one. But this gives you an idea of what they did. They laid them out on the table, and there were several tables like this. And it's always front and back. So we'd go and turn over the tablets. And you see here, it's a mixture of languages, right? They just can't interpret it. And so scholars have a big problem with that. Here's one that has a lot of Egyptian influence.
So, okay, as we look at the one he's saying, so-called Egyptian influence. So that look is supposed to be Egyptian, right? It can't be. They found this here, right? This is what I'm saying, guys. Talking about logic. You found this here, right? Now you're saying Egyptian influence. What the? Sorry. What is so-called Egyptian? That's a Greek word. Is that what they call themselves? So-called ancient Egyptians? Do they call themselves Egyptians? That's a Greek word. This is what I'm saying, guys. Break the spells. Oh, so-called Phoenicians, so-called Minoans, so-called Egyptians. Oh, really? Oh, really? Egyptian influence. What you mean Egyptian influence? Ancient American influence. So they're saying these tablets have so many languages, we just don't know. We like, think about that. It's not that it has so many languages, it's that that's the original. So pieces of that original language become dialects, become languages in the world. Remember, we got whole videos on this, guys. And when we're talking about, he keeps mentioning Hertz, Miss Hertz, right? That the book, The Mystic Symbol. I want to show you guys something, right? Because even I be forgetting all the videos I be having. So we got 2 videos already out, actually, on that book. These are the 2 videos right here. Part 1, The Mystic Symbol, Ancient Stones, The Controversy, Mark of the Michigan Mound Builders. That's what she was calling it. That's what he's talking about right now, that mark, that signature, Yahweh. And cuneiform style. Then part 2, Michigan relics, ancient script, Paleo-Hebrew, Greek, Assyrian, so-called Egyptian, right? From 9 months ago, right? Did you miss these videos from 9 months ago? You guys remember? I know I know a lot of you remember. So this is what I'm saying. You see how it all comes together. We're not just doing one video. We're not going off of Alex. We're not going off of one thing. There's so many things that corroborate America's a true old world. If you only knew. If you only knew. Catch up on the research. Verify it. The research speaks for itself. Today, this just happens to be the topic, right? So yeah, we got the book. We're going to continue in that book. Don't worry. I got to get back to it. We only read, like, I guess that's 2 chapters we probably read. We're going to get back into that book, all right? So look forward to that. Maybe even this week, coming up this week, right? Get back into it since we're talking about it today. All right. So going back to Alex. Shout out to Alex. Koritz. Shout out to Alex. So-called Egyptian influence. This is American influence, right? But check it out. I mean, just look at this alone. So in ancient Egypt, what they have, the snake. What is this? This is like a turkey or something, I think, on top of his head. Like a mohawk and a turkey, or that the snake. So where are they getting that from? Really? You're finding that here in ancient America. Not over there.
Even possibly some African influence. Again, Egyptian clothing. This would be ceremonial because it wasn't that big, but you see the mystic symbol there in the middle. And there is a lot of calendar stones, and some of these were 5 feet long. I mean, these are massive. So you see the mystic symbol there all over the place. Lots of lunar alignments, different calendar stones. We'll talk about one of the calendar stones in a minute.
You guys see how big they were? That was the whole wall filled with them. Like, these are huge tablets, guys.
Again, this dress is very Middle Eastern, very Phoenician, and then also the hat is very Egyptian. So again, sort of a mixture of cultures. let me jump to, oops, I was going up. Okay, so essentially, I mean, these are just really high-level points, right? There's a lot more details, but so the supporters say, look, we have artifacts found in 27 different Michigan counties. This isn't in here, but it's over, over a 100-year period of time. Anywhere from 10 to 30,000 artifacts were found. I know that's a big range there, but thousands of artifacts found. The slate we know is from the Quinoa Peninsula, so several hundred miles away. Copper's from Isle Royale, and then 7 different states. So good luck faking something like this, right? Daniel Soper said it best there. One of the people was really accused of it. He says, I personally have knowledge of more than 3,000 articles that have been found. And if they are pure and were buried to be found, whoever buried them has been a very busy person, because they have been found throughout the state by hundreds of different people. And again, over like a 120-year period. So
basically, the guy was saying at the end there, like, where he was reading, that if it was one guy doing, like, imagine, like, these are over 3,000 look at this, 30,000 artifacts in 120 years, found by different people, reported by different people, and they wanted to tell us, this is what they're trying to tell us, guys. This is what I'm saying. They're trying to tell us all of these are hoaxes. You gotta understand how deep it goes. Like, it's not just telling us a couple things or hoaxes. They're telling us over 30,000 artifacts found by different peoples throughout North America over a span of 120 years are all hoaxes, right? And then they want us to think that all those large skeletons they found in the mounds and everywhere else in the Americas and North America, 7-footers, 8-footers, 9-footers, 10-footers, 12-footers, 15-footers, never existed. Never existed. Nope, never happened. And we just live our lives like, okay, none of this never happened. None of this was ever reported. It's all fake. Then if all this is fake, then everything is fake, right? They're not giving us specifics when they say Egyptians, who? Give me a name. What are you talking about? When did he come to America? Show me the primary source. Stop lying.
Really? I mean, it would be impossible to fake that. Now, this is another interesting thing, and I'm not a astronomer, I'm not necessarily an astronomist, but so this is really interesting. So this is a calendar stone, and David Deal writes a lot about this. So you can go back and get astronomical records because you can align asteroids and eclipses. And so what this is, it's a tablet found in 1896, and it essentially points to the calendar, the July sector. And so during this time, this also shows a lunar eclipse and a certain meteor shower. And so if you follow the calendar, this correlates to the Delta Aquaroid meteor shower that happened about 325 AD. And so, people studying, the stars are able to do this with different records. So this essentially is what would have happened if it passed over Michigan about 325 AD. And this is what they would have seen, because you have a certain lunar alignment with a certain meteor shower in a certain month. And the last time that had that over the area of Michigan would have been 325 AD. So really, really interesting. And David Dill concludes that this single artifact has proven the time, or at least a moment in time, that the Coptic Christians were there. And remember, that was his conclusion, that the Coptics were there. There's lots of different, this is just one example of the calendar stones. There's lots of different stones here that point to unusual happenings in the heavens that can be correlated to certain time periods. And again, I wish I could explain that a little better, but it's fascinating. So my grandfather, Milton R. Hunter, says So he was communicating with Daniel Soper's son, Ellis Clark Soper, and they were exchanging letters. And at the end of the letter, this is what my grandfather wrote back. He said, also, the fact that many people have proclaimed that both Father Savage and your father's collections are frauds or forgeries makes your and my problem much more complicated. As you know, I personally, however, feel that the artifacts are all genuine. And he was not a dumb guy. He was a PhD and spent his entire career studying ancient cultures and religion. Detractors. So let's see what they say. So we've talked about the metal, the tool marks. So supporters will say, yeah, but there's copper tools that are found. And then the detractors say, yeah, but they were found later once there were criticisms that come up. Well, we've searched the records, and actually there are copper tools, carving tools found early, so 1850s, so really early on. So suggesting that they were introduced later on to cover up this criticism, it doesn't hold up. And by the way, we're finding a lot of evidence that ancient cultures used types of metal for carvings. I mean, go look at the Egyptian pyramids, Tiwanaku in Peru. They're cut so precisely you can't put a sheet of paper between them. So unfired clay, this is another big criticism. So some of the pieces were unfired clay, just natural clay. And so critics say, well, look, these cannot survive in a climate like Michigan. It's wet. They're going to dissolve. So Wayne May had a piece of this actual unfired clay from the collection. He stuck it in a container of water for a year, I think at least a year, pulled it out, no deterioration at all. Nothing happened to it. So we really think that these would hold up. This type of clay is going to hold up. So a mixture of languages, well, who here speaks English? What's that mixed with? It's got Saxon, Pic, Britain. I mean, it's a mess of languages. So if we have cultures here that have overlapping cultures for 2,000 years in the Americas, and it's mixed with different cultures, that's what would happen. I mean, that's what we'd expect to find. Sheet copper, I think. So okay, so here's where this gets really complicated. There is some suspect pieces, particularly the sheet copper. The ancients just didn't do sheet copper. So even supporters think that, yeah, there may have been some fakes that were included in here, and the sheet copper ones are particularly suspect. So this is what's really unfortunate, because if there are fakes, tossed into some of these collections, it's like poisoning a well, right? That nobody's going to drink at it, or no scholar is going to drink at it. And once it gets messy, they're just not going to touch it. And that's what's really, really unfortunate. But to cast aside the whole collection and all these artifacts as fakes just because a couple have been, are suspect is ridiculous, really, and not scientific. But that's what we see. That's what we see happening. Okay. So you got to be careful with artifact collecting. You can spend a lot of money on some silly stuff, and you can even get in trouble in some stuff you buy, particularly with Native American items. So anything ceremonial, anything with an endangered animal. If you have say a Navajo artifact with an eagle feather, which isn't unheard of, you can find those. You can go to jail for a long time. So you got to be really careful, particularly the southeastern cultures, Navajo and Anasazi pots and things. So you got to be really careful with who you buy from. If things are found on private land, you're usually fine. If they're passed down through families, if there is paperwork that says they were legally acquired, then you're okay. But just be really careful. Be careful with people online. That's not to say you can't find good antique dealers. So the people that are going to sell you artifacts are collectors themselves or professional antique dealers. So be careful of eBay. And there is some real stuff on eBay, but if you've got somebody, research the heck out of them. So let me give you an example. There's one guy, and I can set you up with him, but his name is Salvador Trento. and he's an Oxford scholar. He's written several books, and he is an antique dealer as well. And so I bought several artifacts from him because I trust him. But I spent a lot of time researching and talking to them. So you got to be really careful. That's the number one note of caution there. Try to get paperwork if you can, or at least good provenance, at least where this artifact has been, right? So I'll readily admit there's some pieces I bought that, who knows? But I thought they were cool, and I didn't care that much, right? So there's some I know for sure that are genuine, and I brought a lot of these, and some I bought from actual like antique, like Christie's, places like that, real antique galleries. What else did I not mention here? So those are the cautions. Let me show you some of the stuff I brought here. So this is a Hopewell pipe found in Illinois. Anybody familiar with the Naples Mound in Illinois, in Pike County? Anybody know the Zelf story? Okay. So the top X right there is where Zelf's Mound is. The bottom X is where this is from. It's only a few acres away. So because of my religious tradition, I was really interested in this one. So I acquired this, and also my family is from Illinois. So this is one of my favorites, and it's right here. And afterward, you can come up and look at it. But the Hopewell, we're not 100% sure what the effigy pipes were used for. Probably somewhat ceremonial, but frankly, we don't even know really who the Hopewell people are. So some of that stuff's a little safer. That's the effigy pipe there again, the eagle, and it's right here. This is interesting. So this is the provenance of this, found in the 1800s in Louisiana. A farmer on his own land uncovered a whole cache. And so the dealer here said, of course, Native Americans don't have facial hair. So the dealer here thought this originated from when Henry de Soto's army, led by Louis de Musoko, penetrated the interior of the southeastern United States. In other words, he thought this was with the Spaniards, and they were depicting the Spaniards. He could be right, or this could date a lot earlier. It is a pipe. It's got a hole on the bottom, and I did bring this as well. It could date to a lot earlier with a different, Caucasian group here in the ancient Americas. Who knows? But I thought that was pretty cool. And it was a trusted source. This right here, if you can see it standing up, this is Michigan copper. This is native copper. And this was found close to the Snake Mound. Anybody been there in Ohio? So this was found about a mile away, again, on private land. Really, really cool. Come look at this. It originates from Michigan. It's a coiled snake that's carved around it. The dealer didn't know what it is. It could be some sort of ceremonial stake. I just didn't know, but I thought it was really cool. So come check that out. This is from Ohio. What was unique about this, it's an owl, but it has a human face on the base. This had a professional repair on it too, that you can barely see. That just the repair would have cost about $300. So what this guy was pricing it at, it was a deal. I felt really good about it. This, of course, didn't have paperwork, but just from the provenance this had, I was comfortable with it. But again, some of this you're just making a call, right? I can't guarantee, I can't prove that to you. But somebody had spent $300 repairing the base, and it had good provenance from where it came from. Provence, everything with it. There's a side view of the guy. Okay, this is from Isle Royale. So Michigan copper, native copper, and you're welcome to even, come hold it. So it was found by the Hoffman family in the 1840s and just passed down through the family. The dealer said here an axe head like this of pure copper up from Michigan surfaces about every century or so. So I was really excited about this and inquired it, and Again, it's right there. Come take a peek. This is an axe head, which did have paperwork. So, of course, there was no question of legitimacy. It's Edina. The scholar here dated it to about 800 BC for whatever reason. Sometimes with the patina or the rock aging, you can make a guess at the dating. But this is huge. It's right here. I mean, come lift it. This would have been a big Indian. This thing is massive.
This would have been from a big Indian. It's massive. They dated to 800 BC. He's like, maybe they used the patina, maybe they used blah, 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 blah. We got to dodge the hijack with their carbon datings, right? They try to always make America less older than Europe and Asia and Africa because it wouldn't fit their false narratives. They purposely do these things, guys. We have broken this down. We've shown how unreliable carbon dating really is and how much they be guessing and adding and being biased with it. So he's letting you know, look, this must have been owned by a large Indian. Yeah, we're talking about those 8-footers, 9-footers, 7-footers, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of the things that might be put out, that the Hopewell and axe heads were smaller than the Edina. The Edina were about twice that size.
Yeah, exactly. So the Edina were, I mean, there's lots of evidence that they were just a larger people. And
you guys hear that? The guy was actually asking him something deep. Hey, so you talking about giants? Yeah, they were a larger size people. The Edina, Hopewell, Edina, mound builders. They were larger people, he's saying. He didn't call them giants. You guys paying attention?
the Beaker people of England, there's evidence that they were too. So a lot of people, and I think Wayne does too, believes that they came over.
Well,
They built a lot of this, Stonehenge and things like that, and came over and built some of this. It's just a theory, but there's some ties there.
So he says some people in England are also known to have been large or giant, right? And they probably came here and built this stuff, he says. That's a theory, he admitted. That's a theory. Yeah, that's a theory, dude. So where's the logic in that? Why couldn't it just been somebody here? Especially if you know, because I know they know, that they finding giant bones here. You're saying all these giant bones all over the Americas are just foreigners. We're talking about giants, again, 7-footers, 8-footers, 9-footers, 10-footers, 15-footers. Yeah. Yeah. It's all good, Jacob.
But yeah, that thing is huge. This is just a pipe found on private land. This one's hard to date. The Edina did tubular ones, but the historic Indians did ones like this too. So that one on the left is hard to date. I didn't bring these arrowheads, but these are from farms in Michigan and Ohio. But I've lived in Ohio, obviously, too. So I was interested in collecting some of these, and they're in a case at home. There's a little bone piece. You can see there's a pendant that was broken. The hole is broken through. Some tools, a little paint pot there, where they would have ground whatever berries to make whatever dye. That's that pipe again. That's hard to date. That could be historic Indian. It could be older. This is interesting. This is Mississippian. Really good Provence, trusted source. It's some sort of pot. It's right here. The Mississippian culture, they came after the Hopewell. So they picked up around 600 AD and went to clear into the Cahokia time frame, about 1000, 1100 AD. So they were a little bit later. You see a little bit more, some creepier stuff kind of from some of these artifacts. And they tend to they start to get a little closer to the Mesoamerican cultures. They start to have some similarity. So that's interesting too.
He just said, okay, and also they have some similarities with the Mesoamerican culture. He's talking about the Mississippian culture. And we know that to be true.
This was I bought from a guy that had found this on his land. He lived right on the Kalamazoo River in Michigan, and he pulled this out of the riverbank. So there was a lot of rain and flooding, and he went to the riverbank, and this was just sticking out several feet down on the side of the bank. So child's toy, I don't know what it was. It's the rear end of some sort of animal. I didn't bring that. I should have brought that. I didn't. Sorry. There's some that are here, obviously, that I don't have slides. I didn't bring this. This is archaic knife. This one's really cool. Anybody like Da Vinci Code? I, of course, don't believe everything there, but this is from the Moravian dynasty. I bought this from a gallery like Christie's. This is one of the most expensive things I've ever bought. It still has the original dirt on it. But so they called these line of kings the sorcerer kings because they were known for healing by the touch of hand and other miracles. Lots of mythology, lots of legends associated with them. Maybe Christ's bloodline came through those kings, maybe not, who knows, but it's an interesting dynasty. Yeah, it's a bone, that's from a bone, and it's right up here, so that's one of my favorite pieces. This is a royal medieval, this is from medieval France, a royal figure. It's not that old, it's probably about 1400 AD, but still pretty cool. I do love Mesoamerican cultures, particularly the Olmec. The Olmec are fascinating. So my theory with the Olmec it was just a melting pot of trading cultures. So you have, I mean, look at the jade masks there. If you saw that isolated by its own, what would you say that culture that's from? Very Chinese, right? The guy up in the left, very African, or just a mixture. So
hold on, Alex. Come on, bro. What you mean African? That's the hijack. Oh, he's just saying because they have Negroid, so-called features, right? Whatever people associate to African. That's what he's talking about, right?
And then you have some Hebrew and Phoenician carvings. There's a carving in one of the Olmec sites called Uncle Sam, where, I mean, this guy is Caucasian.
So he's calling Semitic Caucasian, and he's calling people with pointy noses, like the way they interpret race, guys, is all based on some German guys, scientists, and that's from the 1800s, literally. That concept is wrong. So they're looking at all these phenotypes they're finding in ancient America, which we have shown. We've gone over like so many, right? Those are some great videos, by the way, if you haven't seen them, showing what he's saying, Negroid, Phoenician, Hebrew, what he's calling some, whatever beard, people with beards. So all phenotypes found here in ancient America, in the carvings and the stone. All right? True old world.
So the Olmecs were just a mixture of about 1200 BC of just different cultures. And then I think they went to Poverty Point a lot, which is an ancient site at the mouth of the Mississippi River in Louisiana. And of course, up the Mississippi to get Michigan copper, right? Mm-hmm. But anyway, the Olmecs are very interesting, without question, Chinese influence, and then some other cultures. What do I have from the Olmecs? This little boy is there. Is that all I brought? Oh, and then this African/Asian guy right here on the end, on the top left there. That was from an estate sale of an archaeologist that taught at the University of Arizona. He died, and his family sold a lot of pieces. So
he's calling the one on the left up here is African, right? Because of the features. But this was found here in North America, guys, right? Or in Central America, right, with the Olmec.
That's where those two come from, an archaeologist that was specialized in Mesoamerica. I meant to bring this, I didn't, but this is dates to the time of Christ. It's an oil lamp. These are not that hard to get. You can buy these for a couple $100.
No.
Yeah. This is mine. Again, this was from a a scholar, it was a husband and wife scholar from Wesleyan University who passed away, and the daughter was selling some pieces. So I bought this from the daughter. Her parents brought it back from Mexico. Clearly Mayan, some sort of vassal used for something. Who knows? And that's right
Who
here.
knows? Who knows?
So you can come take a look at that. This is really cool. This is a whistle. So it's Mayan. Let me see if I can even do this. This is from one of my favorite antique dealers I buy stuff from. So this is about at least 2,000 years old, and works.
So a 2,000-year-old whistle. That's cool, right? In Costa Rica, a lot of the like tourist or souvenir shops will have indigenous creations, right? Like whistles and pipes and stuff like that from the indigenous people. And a lot of them are like that, just the same way with bird form stuff. And so they still do it. They still do that. You know, the indigenous people here, they still do that.
So Mayan whistle there. This is from Cahokia. So in a family for a long time, and you see at the bottom, and this is here. This is by the Mongrovian dynasty gal. You see that figure in a lot of the Cahokia stuff, that bird, kind of Birdman figure, if you're familiar with it.
Birdman.
Then the cross thing.
Yeah, we know the Birdman. We sure do. The Birdman, huh? The same Birdman that they show in Mesopotamia, the bird-headed man, like holding, right? The Birdman. We know the Birdman. Yeah.
So I had to get that one when I for sale. Pretty cool stuff, and we just came from Cahokia. So that's right there. This is one of my favorites. This was from a Hopewell site in Ross County, which is full of Hopewell activity in Ohio. I served in Ross County. It is gorgeous. It's just a gorgeous little bird.
Gorgeous.
And I'm sure I brought that. What's that?
It's supposed to say Mount Newark.
Yeah. Yeah. Did I bring it? Did I not bring that one?
Gorgeous.
Oh, I did. Yeah. So come look at that here. They could even, this has a lot of patina that you can date it as well. So it's behind the Egyptian head here. It's one of my favorite pieces. It's just gorgeous. This again is from that Oxford scholar I was telling you about. This is from Southern Illinois. It's turtle effigy pipe.
Wow. Now this was, look at that, guys. Southern Illinois. Little Egypt. What are you talking about? Little Egypt? Southern Illinois? The snake, huh? A pipe. Look at that. Wow. That's cool right there.
Really cool piece. Right up here up front. These I didn't bring these because they're so fragile. But this is the Seal of Solomon. If you read some of the legends behind that, supposedly Solomon could cast out demons and things with that sign.
Oh, shit.
It only dates to about 1400s in Israel, though. I mean, it's not super old.
Yeah, we know
This
that.
is a Templar signet ring. They would make their mark into wax with that. These folks had to have been small. I can barely, these go on my pinky. It's interesting.
What?
And then that is a Celtic bracelet from Germany that dates to about 3000 BC, really old. They're so fragile. I just didn't dare bring these. But anyway, really cool stuff. I do have some of these Yashabis, Egyptians. These were almost like prayer beads for the Egyptians. That's sort of the best analogy for the ancient Egyptians. Some of them are up here, really cool stuff. Not that hard to get too. I mean, those are out there if you're looking for them. So this is an example of a piece I bought that, who knows, I took the risk. It was in a family possession from Saudi Arabia. It's an Egyptian looking head, but I can't prove anything to you, but I bought it. I just thought it was really cool. Family claimed it was Egyptian and been in their family for hundreds of years, but that's up front. So that's an example of one that, I'll risk it not being real, but I really liked it. So who knew Romans made glass? So these are two examples here. That's a glass vial from Rome, and that's hanging on the little stand there. Be really careful with that too. And then glass beads that are Roman as well. So they did a lot of work with glass, and I didn't know that till a few years ago. And I like rocks and fossils and stuff. So I didn't bring these, but these are just some examples there. But just to sum up here, Wayne May likes to say Columbus was last. There was a modern expedition here where they built the exact replica of a Phoenician ship, and to prove that the Phoenicians could do it, and they easily made it to the Americas and back. So Columbus was last, right? Lots of other cultures here before Columbus. All right, thank you. Come on out.
Yeah. All right. Good shit, Alex. Yeah. All right. Appreciate Alex for the presentation. We did this for education. I hope you guys enjoyed what he was showing and how it correlates to what we research. You see that? We got to apply all that always, and we got to know how to dodge the hijack, because, wow, it's a lot of hijack. There's a lot of hijack in between all this truth, always. Many layers, right, of the hijacks we got to get through. But we appreciate him trying and doing, I hope you guys enjoyed the little presentation. We're going to definitely get into his grandfather's book on another video. This is already a 2.5 hour video, almost 2 hours and 40 minutes. So we're going to end it here. Make sure people sit down and watch this, Hopefully they do. Hopefully what I'm saying, kind of like makes them want to catch up to the rest of the videos anybody new. And they just saw this pop up in their feed, how we do it here. We try to like talk specifics and facts, without emotions involved. Yeah, thank you everybody that came through. Appreciate everybody that came through. Really, like, much love and respect, for real. Hold on. Let me see. So yeah, we're gonna end it there. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm gonna get into that book, his grandfather's book. Look forward to that. I hope you guys, see how this is the true old world. I mean, all this proof right here. Like, this is just some of the stuff we've shown before. Not all of it, just some of it. All right. So we're gonna go out right there, okay? We're gonna go out with Signs. Shout out to Signs for the outro. All right. Shout out to Signs for the outro. All right. Pura vida. Pura vida, mi gente. Hawa, Hawa. Hawa, yeah. Pura vida. I'm outie. Fight dowdy. Hawa, yeah.
What? You wanna fight? Fight me. You're pretty good, but your style is no match for mine.
That's the hijack. Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Bring the heat, I extinguish it. Oh, wow. Starts to hijack. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wow.